Shall we start with the gong to call them to order?
I'm waiting for them to close the door out there. They usually ring the bell and close the door. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to UUFCC. And I must say that today's music will be all recorded, words on the screen, but if you'd like to follow along in the hymnal, I will also give you those numbers when the time comes. So please rise in body or spirit to sing along with the video our opening hymn, which is The Fire of Commitment, and that is 1028.
From the light of days remembered, burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, which demands a deeper justice, built by our courageous choice. And the fire of commitment sets our mind as goal ablaze. When our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment, and our future can begin.
Be seated. Again, welcome to everyone. Today is the 12th night on the Christian calendar, the last of the 12 days of Christmas, and the occasion for which Shakespeare presented his comedy of the same name, Twelfth Night, to the first Queen Elizabeth's court. Tomorrow, of course, is Epiphany, and the day after that is I'm not gonna take it anymore day, just so you know. I'm Sharon Whitehill. I'm pleased to be your worship associate this morning at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Charlotte County, UUFCC. We've begun our service as usual with music for everyone, whether you're watching on YouTube or here in person in our sacred space. The broadcast is live, so it will be available on the UUFCC YouTube channel after the service as well. If you are here attending for the first time, please stand and introduce yourself or wave, if you will, and Doug will come around with a microphone and we can meet you that way. Is there anybody here for the first time? And Doug stands there alone. Okay. Thank you, Doug, anyway. How about returning snowbirds? I spy one. Dorothy? Here's Dorothy. Yeah.
Dorothy. Hey, Dorothy.
My name is Dorothy Parmenter, and it's my first time being back here this year, and it's wonderful to see everyone. I felt emotional seeing everyone. It was great to be back. Thank you.
Very good.
Welcome back, Dorothy. No one else? Before we begin, I want to offer a special thank you to all of the many, many volunteers whose time and effort make these services on Sunday possible. We really couldn't do it. We couldn't manage without all of you. Now, if you please would put your phones in worship mode while I think of that, I will remind you to turn them back on at the end of the service. And we will be listening to Jim Boyle on the video doing our prelude. you, Jim. The lighting of the chalice comes next, and that is a ritual in our tradition that I invite those of you at home to partake in. Be ready to kindle your own chalice or candle. And John is going to light the candle here in the sanctuary. Thank you, John. Story is the theme of this month, and today's ritual blessing is from the Reverend Sandra Fees, and it is called A Shared Story. For the stories that long to be told and retold, for the stories that long to be imagined and reimagined, for the stories that long to be envisioned and celebrated, for these we light this chalice. May its flame bring the light of different truths, different paths, and different voices, all needed to cultivate a transformative story of justice, beauty, and love. Please join me now in speaking our affirmation printed in your order of service, after which we will have a moment for meditation, and I will attempt for the first time to bring you back with a chime. So please join me in our affirmation. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our aspiration, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another. I did it. Our opening words today are from the British journalist Will Storr, S-T-O-R-R. He's a writer who has reported from the refugee camps of Africa, from war-torn rural Colombia, and from remote Aboriginal colonies in Australia. Both opening and closing readings today are from Will Storr, his book, The Science of Storytelling, Why Stories Make Us Human and How to Tell Them Better. Our errors about what others are thinking are a major cause of human drama. As we move through life wrongly predicting what people are thinking and how they'll react when we try to control them, we haplessly trigger feuds and fights and misunderstandings that fire devastating spirals of unexpected change in our social worlds. Because everyone who's psychologically normal thinks he or she is the hero. All this is to say that we experience our day-to-day lives in story mode. The brain creates a world for us to live in and populates it with allies and villains. Then it places its star, wonderful, precious me, at the center. The hero who sets out on a series of goals that become the plot of my life. Story is what brain does. Story emerges from human minds as naturally as breath emerges from human mouths. You don't have to be a genius to master this. You're already doing it. Becoming better at telling our stories is simply, but not so simply, a matter of peering inward at the mind itself, the mind that creates them every time. Let us now enjoy singing along again with this recording of We Would Be One. Please rise in body or spirit. And this is hymn number 318. I see I reversed some items on the order of service, but we got through it. And now we come to the Book of Life and the dropping of stones, which is another ritual that we're all familiar with by now. The Book of Life offers you the opportunity to share your joys and your sorrows and your life milestones with the rest of us by writing them in the red book at the back of the sanctuary. Are there any entries in there, John? He's shaking his head. He was going to convey the book up to me, but that won't be necessary because I think you all prefer to talk into the microphone and drop your stone that way. So that's just fine. Just remember that when you drop your stone in the water to commemorate your sorrow or joy or milestone, that it will be publicly broadcast on YouTube. So keep it brief and be aware of a wider audience than the one in this room. So, whoever would like to come and begin the dropping stones, I invite to come forward and do so.
I wanted to share a little milestone. I'm glad you used that word. There's an election tomorrow night for the Democratic Party, and I'm running for one of the seats on the board, and I would attend 6 conventions a year in the state of Florida. So that's a real milestone for me. So I wanted to share that.
Well, I just found out last night my aunt in Cincinnati had a fall in her parking garage of her apartment. So she's all right. She's in the hospital, had surgery, and hope a speedy recovery. And I just found out also they're turning her apartment building into a condo. So she's going to have to find another place. So.
I'm Bill. I'm inadequate, and I have been trying to send an email to the members of this congregation who might be interested in singing again as a group, and I have failed utterly so far. I'm going to keep trying, but I want to put it into the record in this massive audience that we are going to meet on Wednesday this week at 3 p.m. and do music, maybe. At least talk about music and talk about how we might proceed in some sort of a collective fashion, offering music to this group. And I'm awfully hopeful that more than one person shows up.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carlos, and this is a stone of joy. Basically, because I had a wonderful holiday with my new partner in life and my family, and I'm back, and I hope you all had a wonderful holidays too.
Welcome back, Carlo.
Shelley, this cannot be left unsaid. Jimmy Carter, may he rest in peace.
Shelley, can you stick around and do the final stone for me,
I
please?
sure will.
Thank you. Shelley is now going to drop a final stone for all of those sorrows and joys and even milestones that may remain unspoken today. But we have, we are aware that people carry them and want you to know that you are in our hearts. Now it's my great pleasure to introduce yet again Reverend Ann, who will be speaking to us this morning on the spiritual practice of sacred story. Reverend Ann?
I was a bit distressed when a member of the Appleton Fellowship shared with another person in a class that the Noah and the Ark story found in the Hebrew Scriptures was about needing to belong to the church to be saved because God decided who is good enough to be in heaven. Sadly, there was no opportunity to correct her or the impression she left with the members of the group. Since it is a Hebrew story, it has nothing to do with the Christian church at all. The best understanding of the story is there was indeed a flood that wreaked havoc in ancient Mesopotamia. Think possibly Hurricane Katrina and the stories told about that and why that event happened. There is geological evidence for this story, and the people of that region told various stories to make sense of what happened to them. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, an ancient text written in Akkadian, which has survived in tablet fragments, I'm sure you all have read it. In this epic, the flood was ordered by quarreling gods who were starving for human sacrifices. In the Genesis account, God sent the flood as punishment for the wickedness of humankind. We don't know what it is they did, though. But he saved one family to repopulate the earth. God is always on our side, they would say. All religions and philosophies have stories to tell them who they are, how they came to be here on this planet, how they are to behave, and if there is any type of afterlife once we live and die on this planet. Sometimes they borrow stories from other groups, adapt them, and add them to their own collection of stories. Animism, the belief that everything has a spiritual essence, be it a rock, water, living creatures, or even words. And it is thought to be the first human religion, and it is still practiced in many cultures. While having no written texts, shamans are the wise ones who know the stories told for generations. They tell them again and again, so people learn them very well, as they have no holy book. Stories function for them as stories function for all groups. I loved reading a book to my son when he was little, containing a number of Hindu stories about the gods and goddesses of India. He enjoyed the colorful illustration containing tigers, snakes, and elephants interacting with humans. My friend Prerna Qualvik first visited the Appleton Fellowship on a Sunday focused on Hinduism, where she heard familiar stories and decided immediately this would become her spiritual home. And so it is. The Quran contains many stories with contemporary Muslims used to guide them in their life. Nearly 1/3 of the Quran contains stories which are understood to convey the wisdom from Allah that needs to be imparted to the people, and Allah approves of the method of stories. So these stories form an important part of Muslim life. The UCC congregation in Oshkosh hosted a group of Muslims to share a meal. The group included a young man about 14 or 15 who is a hafiz, one who has memorized the entire Quran and can recite any portion of it that is requested. His family was very proud of his accomplishment. I spoke with him, and he was proud himself, though a little shy about relating how long it took him to memorize the Quran. 3 years. The goal is not the memorization itself, but the ability to learn to live by its precepts, found not just in the rules, but in stories. As you might expect, there are many stories differing by tribal group among Native Americans. These include origin stories, stories about the Creator, and sometimes the trickster. They reflect the geography of the place they live and their relationships with the land, water, or other natural elements or creatures. These stories have now been written down, but for centuries, tribal elders told them around a campfire. Native Americans today are reclaiming these stories as part of their culture. You might not think it at first, but humanists have sacred stories. They tell about the 13.7 billion years of the history of the universe, the slow but steady evolution of our planet, and the devastation humans are creating on the earth. Human rights, healthcare for all, decency, and justice are deep concerns for them, and they tell the stories about what can be changed to make life more wonderful for all. Christians and Jews share common stories from the Hebrew scriptures, though, as I have already indicated, some people may use them in different ways. Christians have their own unique stories focused on the man Jesus of Nazareth and his ministry of teaching, his death and his resurrection. Jesus was a great storyteller through parables, short stories that illustrate a moral or spiritual truth, often using everyday events to teach a religious lesson. Long before the narrative about Jesus was added to the story, Jesus was remembered through his stories. Humans have been telling stories for a very long time because they embody so much wisdom, guidance, and layered meaning. People find themselves within stories in one of the characters or situations. Stories can mean one thing at one time, and when encountered again, may mean something else. Stories may help us interpret events in our lives and may later help us to understand them in a different way from a different perspective. To our knowledge, only humans have the capacity to create stories and make meaning from them. So I ask you, what are your unique sacred stories? Were there stories told about you within the family year after year? Sometimes we can't get away from them even if they happened 50 or 60 years ago. How did these stories affect you growing up? Do they still run in your head from time to time? Would you like to rewrite them in a different way to help overcome a lifelong sense of yourself that may not be true? The Reverend Bob Janice Dillon says, stories, paradoxically, are both a step back from our lives and a step further into our lives. In the short term, stories are an escape from our own life. But in the long term, stories provide us with meaning and context, allowing us to live more fully. Stories remind us that life is not just a set of problems to be solved, but a meaningful tale to be read with care. For me, a story is a chance to take a break from my real life into a different world with people both like and unlike me, in situations I can imagine myself in. Or maybe the setting of the story is unlike anything I have ever experienced. My personal favorite genre is mystery, and I have consumed literally thousands of mysteries in my life. Learning to read, I started out with the tales of the Bobbsey twins. Then I quickly moved on to Trixie Belden and her friends, who solved mysteries all the time. Finding that tame, after a while I moved on to adult mysteries. If I could slip one or two by the librarian at the checkout desk. Sometimes they caught me and sent me back to the children's room, but often I got away with it and came to appreciate some of the great authors of mystery stories. You might like to know there is a reason, if you think about it, why ministry types are both protagonists in mystery stories and real-life authors. We in ministry are often privy to people's lives and struggles. We strongly believe in justice and righting wrong, and have compassion for those who need help to deal with tragedy. We enjoy helping people resolve the issues, but in real life, it's not always so easy. Reading books that always have a solution is an affirmation that in the end, all will be put right. For me, another series, Anne of Green Gables, has been a lifelong treasure. I found the first book in the little library at Girl Scout camp and read it through during our quiet time after lunch. I loved Anne and her friends, and over many years, I bought, with my own money, the entire series. I have reread them many times and finally visited Prince Edward Island and walked places described in the books, visited Lucy Maud Montgomery's birthplace and grave, and of course bought some Anne memorabilia. There is no one on this planet less like Anne than I am. But every time I read one of the books, I visualize myself becoming more like her. If you will, join me in a little exercise about story. Sit comfortably, close your eyes if you'd like to, and think back to the first encounter with story through books read to you or even created just for you. At that young age, what did you feel about story? Then remember adolescence. What stories did you select for yourself that in some way shaped your life? Remember, story can be found in science as well as literature or poetry. What stories do you live by now? Are they sufficient to sustain your life, or do you need to change some of them? Where might you look to find new stories? Finding stories that guide us through life is what humans have been doing for thousands of years. I love the image on our order of service for this morning. Looks like tribal people sitting around a campfire telling the stories of their people. over and over and over. I invite you to find good stories that will enrich your life. May it be so.
Thank you, Reverend Ann. I love that. I love stories. I have written about authors of stories, from Dickens to Mary O'Hara, who wrote My Friend Flicka. So I'm right with you this morning. I'm not very much with myself, though, because I see again that I've confused the order of service, and we missed singing Spirit of Life. And I don't want to miss that. And so I'm wondering if Corey and Tom can indulge me and put that on. If you would rise in body or spirit, as hymn number 123. And we'll sing Spirit of Life now. Is a favorite, and I'm glad we got to it at last. Time now for the offering, and I see our ushers are poised with their baskets in the back of the fellowship. As you know, the offering supports this fellowship and everything we value about it. Remember, there are donation envelopes in the rear of the sanctuary on the table with the red book. And you can email your checks also to the office. You can donate through Venmo, or I guess that. You can put cash on the. You can put cash on the basket. And since nobody is with us for the first time, I'll skip that part and invite the ushers to come forward. We have some offering music as well. Thank you. Our community has a vibrant life, and it's time to talk about that. In addition to the items listed on the back of your order of service, I'd like to remind you that Martin Luther King Jr., the parade in Martin Luther King Jr.'s honor is coming up. There is a sign-up sheet on the bulletin board, and we need volunteers in order to carry the banners representing our fellowship. And you can march by foot or you can ride as suits you. So be sure and sign up for that if you're willing and able. Also, today is the very last day to vote for our People's Choice. If you happen not to be here last week, put $1 in the jar and indicate your first choice among these wonderful art pieces on the wall, and we will then count the winners and announce that probably next week, I would guess. So don't forget to do that and continue to enjoy this wonderful exhibit while I think it's going to be up for quite a while, and I think it's one of the best. I've very much enjoyed it. Laura, you said that you would like to make an announcement, so come on up.
Good morning. I have been reading this book. It is called Authentic Selves. It is the common read for the UUA for this year, and we have a book group here which will discuss this book on January 21st, and you are welcome to join us. And I would recommend this book. It's interviews with non-binary people. I'm learning all kinds of things that I had no idea how they worked, and I have to say it's fabulous.
Thank you, Laura. I have a copy myself, and it's a beautiful book, and very, very eye-opening and very human and beautifully done. So I'm looking forward to that discussion as well. Oh, yes. Yes, Shelley. You have something to say? Yes. Please come up. Okay.
I've never been accused of not having something to say. I just want to let you know the second Sunday in February, which I believe is February 9th, Doug will be leading a drum circle. And it's very apropos because the Immokalee tribe will be here as well. But what I wanted to do was tell you that if you have percussion instruments at home, feel free to bring them because everybody needs to participate in this drum circle. All right, so bang what you can. You know, if you have 2 Tupperware bowls, whatever works. But we'll have a few instruments. I think Doug says he has a few instruments that we're, pass out and stuff like that. So we're looking forward to that. I just want to let you know so you know in advance. All right, and I'll keep reminding you. Thank you.
It fits right in with stories around the fire, drumming. So don't forget. My last item, how could I forget? We have a potluck today, and so be sure and join us for that feast, our first of the month ritual. Everyone is welcome, whether you brought anything or not. There's always plenty to go around and much left over. So before we move to our closing music, I have closing words for you. And again, they are the words of Will Storr from his book, The Science of Storytelling. Beneath the small talk and sketchy biographies and received opinions, people carry within them some central explanation of themselves, stories full of terror, and wonder, studded with events that still haunt or inspire them. Sacred stories lie beneath the self-interest that often polarizes and tell us of stories in which we can experience our shared humanity. I know the power of stories to unite, and I know the suffering that can come from being disconnected from those stories in a world of sound bites and short attention spans. Think of it this way. If tribal thinking is original sin, then sacred story is prayer. At its best, it reminds us that beneath our many differences, we remain beasts of one species. A fitting hymn now, in anticipation of our potluck, number 407. We're gonna sit at the welcome table. One of these days, hallelujah. Please rise and bow your spirit for this. Extinguished, so we will close the service by joining together and speaking our ritual words, which are, I believe, also on the order of service. We extinguish the chalice, or we have extinguished this chalice, but not the light of hope, the fire of commitment, or the warmth of community. May those ideals shine in our lives and warm our hearts until we are together again. Go now in peace and eat.